Okay, what we're looking at is a specific composition of functions, a specific combination, of transformations, not functions, meaning two or more transformations performed back to back, which has some unique properties, and that's reflecting across two parallel lines. So what I'm going to do is I have my figure, I'm going to get a line, and this is going to be my line of reflection. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to mark that line as my mirror, and then I'm going to say, let's go ahead and reflect my figure across that line. So that's my first transformation, is that first reflection. Then I'm going to go ahead and do it again. I'm going to make another line over here that is parallel to the first one. And the way I do that is I make a point, and then I say I want a line that goes through this point and is parallel to this line. And it gives me a parallel line. So now I'm going to mark this line, the new line, as my new mirror or line of reflection, and take my figure and reflect over that. So I've reflected twice, once from here across to the middle figure, and the second time from here across to the one that's currently highlighted in pink there. And Geometry Sketchpad does the nice thing of giving us letters that correspond so we can see which points correspond. In other words, using the A prime, A double prime, B double prime, and so on, so that we can see exactly which points go together. All right, so there are two things about this conjecture that we're going to make. One is the idea that I can go from my pre-image, my original, all the way to the final image in one step, as opposed to doing two steps, which were two reflections, first across here and then across here. And the way that I can do that, the conjecture is that I can do it as a single translation. Easiest way to show you that, a translation, is like basically a glide. So the easiest way to show it would be to copy my original figure and show that if I glide it across here, it lines up. So I went from the pre-image to the final image in one step, a translation. Let's go ahead and do it as an actual translation. So I'm going to fill in my figure so that I can see. What's going to happen is when I've done it correctly, this one will be filled in because this figure will have moved over and filled in here. So first thing I have to tell Geometry Sketchpad is how far and what direction. So I'm going to use 2 points. The original point here is D, D double prime, and say I want you to go from D to D double prime. When I say mark vector, it's basically going to show where a vector would pass from D to D double prime. You're going to see a little animation move across the screen. Okay, that little dotted line was showing here's where my vector is going to take me. So now if I take the whole figure and tell it to translate according to that vector, translation vector is the one that I just marked, it's going to fill in right here. And that's where the result is. So that's the first part of the conjecture, is that it makes a translation. Two reflections across parallel lines are the equivalent of one translation. The other part of the conjecture has to do with the distances. So first we're going to look at the distance between D and D prime, and that is 16.12 centimeters. Next we're going to look, we're looking at the distance between the two lines. In order to do that, we have to have a perpendicular segment, because that's how we find out how far away from a line that we are. So I'm going to hide this line now. And this point and this point were endpoints of that segment. So if I say measure from one to the other, I'll be measuring the distance between the lines. Okay, so you can see that 8.06 is about half of 16.12, meaning the distance between the figures is twice as big as the distance between the lines. And the nice thing about Geometry Sketchpad is that if you move things, if you've constructed it correctly, you can see that the relationship stays the same. You can also see here